Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we begin a 5-day program on climate and consciousness, and how we can mobilize the human spirit for the kind of creativity and courage and dynamism that is required to solve a crisis that has brought the human species and over 1 million other species to the brink of extinction and unparalleled, almost unimaginable dislocation as climate turbulence increases around the world. And as the Secretary General Gutierrez has said for several years now, we are now in a code red situation. And as he said recently, humanity is on increasingly thin ice, and we need to pay attention to that. One of the real challenges, and this is a very sobering thought as we open, is that the climate change has literally been taken off the table. So that despite the fact that it's escalating in severity, the world is not preoccupied with dealing with it, which requires global cooperation. Instead, the world is preoccupied with war in Ukraine. And I think that's important for us to just internalize as we begin a 5-day program on climate, to recognize that the conflict in Ukraine is not only taking climate off the table, but is escalating in severity. All of you, I'm sure, have been watching the news around this young 21-year-old airman first class in the Massachusetts National Guard, Jack Teixeira. He released documents on the internet that floated around for a number of weeks that are indicating the reality in Ukraine. And I think it's worth, as we begin this session today, to just take in what is now incontrovertible. The most fundamental fact of which is that the United States now has troops on the ground that are engaging with the Ukrainians against the Russians in real time, so that the United States and Russia are now in direct military conflict in Ukraine. At the same time, after several years of the United States moving tactical nuclear weapons into Eastern Europe, the Russians have now responded and moved tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. And so Russians and Americans are now in military conflict on the ground in Ukraine. And tactical nuclear weapons by the Americans and the Russians are now being deployed. So essentially, there is no time for even a tripwire for an escalation into nuclear exchange. In the 1980s, under the leadership of President Gorbachev, President Bush, Margaret Thatcher, these tactical nuclear weapons in Europe were eliminated because they were considered too dangerous. And they're too dangerous because they don't allow any human response time, because the tactical nuclear weapons that the US have deployed in Romania and in other Eastern European countries can get to Moscow in less than 120 seconds. The tactical nukes in Belarus can get to Berlin, Moscow, and Paris in less than 90 seconds. So we all need to take in, as we begin our program today, that the situation in Ukraine is escalating, and the impact on anything that we can do around climate change has essentially evaporated. Because the only reason why the world would be able to deal with climate change is if the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese and the rest of the world were actively collaborating to deal with a global problem, the severity of which is taking shape right before our eyes. If we're not careful, rather than solving climate, we're going to proceed to blow ourselves up. And that's the stark reality that the world needs to internalize, all of us, given the release of these documents by Jack Teixeira. Like Edward Snowden, like Daniel Ellsberg, like Julian Assange, he's done a great service for humanity by bringing us the actual truth of what's going on. And one of the deep facts also in the revelations in these documents that the Ukrainians are actually losing the war. According to the documentation, for every one Russian being killed, 7 to 8 Ukrainians are being killed. So the carnage that's happening in Ukraine is stark and continues day by day. So as we begin our program on climate change, we need to just understand the challenges that we're facing. This is no longer a time where we can just speak with eloquence about what needs to be done, because the world is mobilizing one impediment after another. And that's the reality of our situation in the world today. I'll be saying more about the gravity of the crisis as the days unfold. So the opportunity for renewal is large, but the obstacles to any kind of action seem at the present time insurmountable unless we have a ceasefire and we stop the war in Ukraine. I never thought I would say this. For decades now, I've been saying that the climate crisis is the greatest crisis that humanity faces. But today I want to refine that. I think there's a more urgent crisis right now in the world than climate change. And that is stopping the war in Ukraine. We need a ceasefire. We need diplomacy. And if the world doesn't mobilize toward that end, everyone who cares about climate, everyone who cares about any of the other issues, needs to take in, all of us, that we're about ready to go to a nuclear exchange in Europe. And the devastation of that is unimaginable. And the danger of that happening is increasing every single day. And now with US troops on the ground in direct military conflict with the Russians and tactical nukes, eyeball to eyeball, and nobody's blinking, we have this conversation about what we need to be doing about it. So war and peace and climate are now fusing. And we just need to understand that and take in this context. It's in this spirit of sober awareness that I want to introduce two of the people who have worked over the last several months to put this 5-day program together. One person you'll know very well, Stephanie Mines, who has developed a number of our programs on humanity rising. She's written 5 books on neuroscience and various aspects of trauma and shock and how we can work regeneratively to improve our health just by paying attention to our body and some of the simple practices that have been known from time immemorial that enable us to empower ourselves. Also, Kathleen Brigidina, who has been artistically expressing her passion for the earth and working tirelessly on the front lines of social activism and climate activism for some time. So Stephanie and Kathleen are the conveners of this 5-day program. And even within this backdrop that I have articulated, there's still grounds for the kind of optimism and opportunities for growth that they'll be laying out for us today, and they'll be leading us in our opening meditation. So Stephanie, Kathleen, thank you so much for everything that you've done, and I turn the program over to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for this opportunity to bring creativity rising into the conversation, this sobering message that you've opened with. And we offer creativity as the response. Just to quote our poet laureate for the youth, Amanda Gorman, poetry and creativity are the pulse of the most dangerous and daring questions that a nation or a world might ask. And that's what we're doing here. The most dangerous and important question is, how will creativity arise in you to meet the kinds of challenges that Jim has presented? So Kathleen and I, Kathleen, Brigidina, and I have been brought together by those creative forces that live in us to offer this week of Creativity Rising.
And thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Jim, for, like Stephanie said, that very sobering message, but it grounds us into the importance of why we're here together today and this week. And creativity, as you all know, or you would not be here, is something that can move us forward, that can actually open up the possibilities that we need, the voices that we need to be heard, and the feelings inside ourselves of potential and not desperation. You know, we have it within our power to do it. And I'm just so happy that we could all come together and we can share all of these beautiful voices with all of you, these important voices during these times. It is time right now. And that is exactly why Stephanie and I are here. We're linked together in this message and in these times. And so thank you again for being here with us.
So this is also the 4th anniversary of climate change and consciousness. That was the initial impetus for Creativity Rising that magnetized Kathleen to me. And I am so incredibly grateful for that, Kathleen, that you followed that impulse. And climate change and consciousness became itself because of the fusion of creativity and guidance. And that's what this collaboration between Kathleen and I is really all about, the fusion of creativity and guidance. And 4 years out from that launch in 2019, I am blessed to be able to reflect on the teachings of that seed event and how it has nourished the ongoing entity that is a global community, climate change and consciousness. So those teachings are deeply personal to me. And that is the first teaching I want to share with you from climate change and consciousness, which is the intimate fusion of personal and collective transformation. That is what happened for me as I seeded climate change and consciousness, which actually began in 2016 and was born in 2019. That intimate correlation between personal and collective transformation, awakening, is what we're here to encourage, to seed in you through Creativity Rising, which I will suggest is your very nature. And I say your, meaning everyone who is listening now. The other takeaway for me from that initial 2019 gathering is notice clearly, wake up to your collaborations. Collaborations that are not inclusive of women's voices, of Indigenous voices, are questionable collaborations. And I celebrate the way that that teaching has resulted in this, in my collaboration with Kathleen, the way in which our connection is both personal and collective. We're able to do that. We're able to be personally awakening in our collaboration and collectively generous and inclusive. So those are key teachings. There's more, but those two are essential to me, the personal and the collective merger that is part of the guidance that is available to each and every one of us. And the awareness of our collaborations, make sure your collaborations have that personal and collective bond, are inclusive, that prioritize the voices of women, prioritize Indigenous voices, prioritize the voices of youth. And I want to share a dream I had in preparation just last night, possibly very early this morning, that seems symbolic, which is the dream was these hordes of people with very complex technology were forcing their way into my private space, trying to tell me that the technology was more important than my private space. I felt that was a message for Creativity Rising, that we honor our private spaces as the place where creativity and guidance come together. So still honoring this 4th anniversary of climate change and consciousness, a global community that you're welcome to join. I'll put the link in the chat, but you can find it anywhere easily. And I'll read you the poem that I wrote in response to this gathering, Creativity Rising. This is not a poem. It is the articulation of the antenna of my being. It is output from the unified field of consciousness that is dancing with generational, and generative forces of transmutation. Etheric artists from the realms of pure action nurture us. Etheric artists from the realms of pure action nurture us into the beauty we are born to embody. They shine into our minds the brilliant world that our children deserve to inhabit. They shine into our minds the brilliant world that our children deserve to inhabit. They activate the universal kindness that forgives and redeems us. Creativity Rising is not a poem. It is a manifestation of vital intention that is rooted in the mycorrhizal underworld of substance, soil, fungi, ferment, and microbes. Creativity Rising is not a poem. It is the unpredictable descent of wisdom. It is the unpredictable descent of wisdom. It is the mystery of surrender, the mystery of surrender to the presences that invite us when we are aligned by prayer or desperation, when we are aligned by prayer and desperation to allow the erasure of foolish logic, the crumbling of all conclusions, Creativity Rising is not a poem. It is the wingspan of our destiny. Kathleen.
Mhm. Thank you. The wingspan of our destiny. I think that this week we are going to spread our wings as wide as we possibly can. Today, we're going to focus on liberating our own creative nature. And that means connecting with nature, realizing that we are nature. There is no distinction. And that creativity, the energy, that creation energy is one with nature and with us. And together as a community, we have absolutely no way that we can't do this. Together, we have all the potential that is possibly in the universe. And we just have to reach in and understand that that's our creative energy. It's not about art. It's not about painting. It's not even about singing. It's even though it is about those things, because that is expressing our soul and our spirit and our connection as nature. But it's much bigger than that. It's the opportunity for us to make a choice. And knowing that we can do that because we are creative beings, we do not have to follow a set pattern or a certain dialogue. We have it within us, the choice. So today, without further ado, I want to introduce our guests and explain to you a little bit what the conversation is going to be about. And then we're going to hear some beautiful music. So we are joined today by panelists Claire Dubois and Anita Sanchez, and our music will be by Aza Larson. The conversations will be about our collaborations with nature and how we can think of different creative solutions and innovative ways and sources that are at our fingertips for powerful change. And we're calling biologists, artists, writers, musicians, and change makers all to come together and collaborate and co-create. So I'm going to introduce Aza, if she could come on to our screen. Beautiful Aza. Aza has roots in the soil of Sweden, deep, deep roots. Hi, Aza. She is a folk music singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, choir leader. You may also know her as Res Miranda. I've known her for about 7 years now, and I've watched this woman grow in so many fascinating ways. Her voice is reaching new heights all the time. She's a choir leader. She's arranged numerous concerts and projects to raise awareness about climate change and funding to plant trees. As one of the few people who performed the ancient Scandinavian singing technique of Kulnig, she has performed on radio and TV, in castles, embassies, at festivals and conferences for wide audiences, including the royal family. Her solo project, Res Miranda, which has been described as an eco-conscious folk music mixed with ambient electronica and the ancient art of Kulning, I'm saying it wrong probably, released the album For the Trees, which I was very happy to be a part of in 2019. In 2013, her folk music trio, Blah, you're going to have to say that trio name for me, Blah Blah. I'm going to tear it apart. Well, how can you say that for us, please?
It's blås, bälg och tagel.
It's beautiful. Okay, well, I can't wait to hear you singing now. So we're going to turn it all over to Aza.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm so happy to be here with you all. And I'm going to sing a song that I visited the Climate Change and Consciousness Conference 4 years ago. And during all the different workshops and classes, I took notes. And every evening I tried to find if there was a line from the notes that I could use somehow to save it for the future somehow. So from every class or every workshop, I have a little piece of wisdom here that I made a song of. So for you who were at the conference, maybe you remember some of it when you hear it. And for you who wasn't there, maybe you get a glimpse of all the wisdom that was there. So the song is called Take Me Slow, Mother Earth. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. Let's be a movement of compassion in the midst of this mass extinction. Let's be in deepest grief and stubborn optimism. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. Let's undo what we did in the name of linearity and speed. Enjoy your share without greed. In this handful of soil lies your future. Take care of it, and it will take care of you. Destroy it, and it will destroy you. 'Cause life is not an invention, just as seeds are not an invention. Sorry, Monsanto. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. We are the children of this planet, just as language is a lengthening of the land. We are created by Earth, we are here in service of life. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. Everything we say is a prayer, a communication, a decoration on what the world could be. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. By refusing business as usual, we can change this whole world in a blink. Let's refuse, let's lovingly refuse. The fossil fuel companies knew in the 80s about the climate collapse they were creating. Our dear Polly showed us a way into our leadership duty of care. In her name, let's all be Earth protectors. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow. Take me slow, Mother Earth, take me slow.
Oh, I need to breathe. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Asa. You can read, everybody's saying so many beautiful things in the chat. What a beautiful way to open everything up. Thank you. Now,
Thank you,
Stephanie.
Asa. Thank you. Asa, Claire Dubois, Anita Sanchez, and I were present at that initial birth of climate change and consciousness in 2019, during which our beloved Polly Higgins died just days before she was to speak. And that was a central point that allowed us to grieve so profoundly and become, as Asa's gorgeous delivery suggests, in the name of Polly Higgins, earth protectors, voices for our living earth. There's a film, we won't have time to show it. I think in the interest of time, we won't show the film, but I'm wondering, Georg, if you could just put the link to the film in the chat so that people could watch it in their own time. The film from Climate Change and Consciousness that declares our intention, our commitment to be voices for our living earth, to be earth protectors. You know, Earth can protect herself, and she is. It is her love for us that generates the necessity for us to rise in our creativity in her name. I would like to introduce Anita Sanchez, a critical presence in our world, a dear sister. Her book, The Four Sacred Gifts, is a classic. It should be by your side, along with whatever sacred texts you refer to when you drop down into the despair that our world generates, so that you can rise up in your creativity. She's the voice of unity. She is rooted in her connection to her people and to the earth. Anita Sanchez.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Asa, and thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Polly. It's trying not to tear up. And thank you to all of you who are here. Thank you to Finhorn. Thank you to all the people and the places in nature that are calling us, that we're not even aware of, the gatherings and the amazing force that's rising. I'm Nawa, my people are Azteca, and I feel their presence. And I want to acknowledge all of you, that you're not just these people in your various places with these little cells around you on Zoom, but that you are part of all of us, of the hoop of life, of nature that we are part of. And I'm grateful to your ancestors for allowing us to be guests in each other's lands and homes. This creativity is a wonderful thing to speak about, because that's so much creativity rising. This is part of our sacred nature. As an Indigenous person, this is what I've been taught since I was little, is that I was not separate from anything and that I don't do anything alone. And yet we see all these things that are happening, including what that's all about separation. But it's not just about separation. It's how then it takes that separation as using political power, greed, whatever, to destroy, because they want the minerals that are in Mother Earth. Oh, you follow the money, you follow the excavating mentality, and you find the forgetting that we are part of that, of what we are destroying ourselves. And so it makes sense that at the same time would rise the creativity. We know when cultures are rising that the arts, creativity, all of those are rising, writings and stuff. And historically, as cultures are fading, those things begin to drop. For Indigenous people, some 6% of the world's population, 2% in the US. We've been taught through respecting our ancestors and knowing that part of respecting our ancestors and listening to the nature, we are also making way for the continuation of a thriving hoop of life at least 7 generations out. So I wanted to share a couple of current experiences and then some prophecies, and then I'll end with a song that came out of a lot of work together. First, I want to say thank you all for dreaming. In the midst of all this horror, keep dreaming. And if you're not, I'm finding lots of places where I go and consult and train and stuff that people have forgotten to dream. That is what is wanted, is us to stop the creative urges, the dreaming, the seeing what seems impossible for the facts that are in front of us, but are ever so possible when you enter into that realm of larger of who we are, which is the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. Not any one, all of that. And so I just got back a couple of weeks ago from an invitation to present at Necker Island. Necker Island is the private island owned by Sir Richard Branson. And a group of business people invited me to come called Maverick. And I spoke several days, and it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true, and not that I needed to go to a private island or Necker. However, decades ago, I saw an article where this man, Richard Branson, built this 12 Elders Council house. And he would bring President Mandela, Bishop Tutu, Kofi Annan, women, elders from all over the world, and they would sit in circle, listening to guidance, sharing what is coming through, not just from their physical vessel, but from Mother Earth, from the skies, from everything. And the business leaders and government leaders would sit around the outside and not say a word and just listen. And I remember saying to my husband, now 49 years, decades ago, I would love one day to be there, to just be in that energy and ask that I'm in service to these great people who have legacy still lives on. They're not gone, they're here, cheering us on, whispering, allowing us to just listen. And what happened is, for 2 mornings, I presented in the 12 Elders Council House, delivering prophecies and gifts to these business leaders. And there's nothing in the rational world or seeing all this divisiveness that would say this is happening. But the reality is it's happening all over the world at the same time, but we don't give voice to it. That's why we have to. It has to be top up, bottom down, nature involving everyone, not human supremacy, not just us, but the fact that all of us. So one other story there that I think is really important that actually serves us in this creativity. The second morning, the boat was late to take me over to Necker, just a 4-minute ride. And the waves were rising and the wind was blowing. And I was like, well, they can't start without me. I'm the only speaker. And then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, Necker Island, the sea, nature, what is it that you want me to understand? What do you want me to share? And here's what came. Please let them understand that they have been walking in nature, in the beauty. They've been walking in beauty. Necker Island is absolutely beautiful. They've been walking this beauty. But tell them, please understand, beauty is not just aesthetics. Beauty, like physicists, gravity is a force that physicists talk about. Beauty is a force of nature, and you are part of nature. So continue, expand the work of doing good in the world, knowing that it's in flow, that you are part of this beauty, you are part of this nature. And so when I went, I started to go into what I was going to say, and I just stopped. I stopped and said, no, I have to share with you what nature said, because it was for all of us first, and then we'll move from there. And I think that's part of allowing creativity to arise through our dreams, through what listening in the moment, like you did, Stephanie, like you did, Asa, like Claire was on fire in beautiful fire when she was in Pinhorn, all of the people there, But this is radiating out as part of nature coming through us and listening. So one of the prophecies that I want to share that helps me, and I hope it will help you, continue to draw on that creativity, even in the most dire situations. And I know those. I know them from personal life, of some, one hand, very beautiful upbringing, on the hand, abuse, and also ultimately what happened was the murder of my father, which was rape-related. So a lot of things that people think are unforgivable and just unthinkable, and yet these things are happening and we need to stop them, but we need to know that we don't have to get stuck in them. We have to continue to be life-giving forces in this soup of life. That's a joy and a responsibility. And so the prophecy goes like this, and I've heard this since I was a little girl. So I heard it both with the Osage, my own people, the Nawa, but I've also heard a Mohican elder say this. I've heard different versions in Australia. So I think it's one of these prophecies that has the themes coming through. Again, we're listening to Mother Nature. And it goes like this, and Spirit said, these horrific things are happening. And the people, the indigenous people, are looking and saying, oh my gosh, the trees are dying, the earth isn't, the plants are dying, our plant relatives, it's difficult to breathe. And Spirit said, sing your songs, do your dance, be in ceremony, be in community. And then more unfolds. We're talking about this existing, this prophecy for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And then worse happens, and species are dying and we can't fish here anymore. And the air, you can't breathe here. And Spirit says, sing your songs, do your dance, be in ceremony, and be in community. Now, when I was a little girl and a teenager, I just knew the truth of that and just filled up. But then when I became in my 20s, I started going, no, there's something because you can't just be doing this when all these horrific things are happening. What are you telling me? And then I realized Spirit makes no mistakes. That never was Spirit saying to deny what was going on or not to respond to it, but to come from the creativity, the sacredness, that trueness of who we are and what we are, which gets fed by singing our songs, doing our dance, being in ceremony, and being community. So I urge you, all of us, to really listen with the softest part of our ears and expanding hearts. Be aware of what we're present to, but remember that a lot of what we're present to is not what's being shown to us. We need to respond to that, and we need to keep an eye on where we're going, which is a life-giving force, this hoop that we're a part of. As Michael Beckwith, a friend of mine, said, pain pushes till vision pulls. And we have our Indigenous in our various language of a code of that's been handed down for thousands of years. So this is all very critical. One last prophecy, and then I'd like to move to a song. I'm a messenger of we have many prophecies, and prophecies do not, as Indigenous people, do not tell the future, but they do give us an indication of what may or may not, what may happen if we stop listening to the original instruction. And that original instruction that we're all talking about here, and that climate consciousness and change conference is about, and that many gatherings all over are happening, is that we are part of the earth, the stardust. We are part of all of this. We are not separate. And so many of you may be wondering, okay, I can do my dance song. I don't know, I'm not Indigenous. I mean, but you have your own ceremonies and rituals. And if you don't, make some for yourselves. And how do I be in community when all these things are happening? It's really hard being a change maker. It's really hard being me, a leader in my family, let alone in communities and part of movements to save the rainforest, like I am part of with the Amazon, and all the different things that we're all doing. But it's about how we be, because well-being inspires well-doing. And let's not let the people who've forgotten, let us forget. Don't let them do that. They can't take that away, because we know that how we feed this, and that this is also part of all that supports us. I do nothing alone. So the prophecy is the Eagle Hoop prophecy. And so I'm just going to name these 4 gifts. And the 4 gifts are gifts that you all have, and they go very deep. And in Indigenous wisdom, you'll hear people talking about all these gifts, but we go layers of layers. And for people who are still here, despite all the genocides of the past and the current ones, this is part of why we're here. So Spirit said, remind the human beings, all humanity, to use these 4 gifts in order to be able to create again harmony and balance, because the 2-leggeds have forgotten. And the 4 gifts are, first, the power to forgive the unforgivable. The power to forgive the unforgivable. Just take that in. And you might be already starting to think of things that you've forgiven and some that you go, I don't know. But this is one of your gifts. The second is the power of healing. The power of healing. If we want to be the most creative, just keep expanding. There is no end to it. We just keep expanding. But if we're not doing our healing, then how are we create? We're creating out of a brokenness, out of and it's a journey. We just keep going. But I know my kids used to say every morning when I fix breakfast, I say, oh, it's another good day to heal. And they go, I don't think moms say that, do they? But it is a wonderful gift. So keep being about our healing, and we can become even more and more of a life-giving force for this soup of life. The third gift that they put in there for all of us is the gift of the power of unity. And that's what we're doing here. That's what Stephanie and Kathleen giving all this time, and I know their plates are already full, to put this together, because they know when we come together, there's another energy that happens. Nature is already with us, whether we're denying her or not. But when we come together in a conscious way, in an intentional way, as 2-leggeds, this unity. So look at where you are collaborating, as Stephanie said. But please, when you're looking at unity, look at the unity between your heart and your mind, your spirit and your body. We must be about that. And then the 4th and final gift is the gift of the power of hope in action. Hope in action. And hope isn't some, la place. Hope is an energy force. It's what keeps us going. As Indigenous people, we know that. And so we just sing stronger and dance harder and ceremonies, and we don't let people take away our joy. And it is hard. And we are out there in the responsive way. We began out of Ecuador, the rights of nature in the Constitution led by Indigenous people. Now all over the world, all over the US, Indigenous people are leading rights of nature in our own sovereign territories. And this is spreading with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people all over the world. There is a response that's happening, but have it come out of, and where it is coming out of is our creativity. We will still be here despite all the horrors that are happening. I know that from my ancestors because I'm here. We are seeds. They tried to kill us, but they forgot. We are seeds. And with that, I would love to play a song. It takes about 5 minutes to complete my talk. So if George could put that on. And what it is, it's called In Right Relations. And it came out of 9 people singing, 6 Indigenous, 3 not Indigenous. We're all from the earth. So, but you know what I mean in terms of really being connected to a lineage of Indigenous people. And we sang this, and it's a lot of the messages that came out of my book, The 4 Sacred Gifts, and that are in my course. So if you would, George, play that song, and the words are up there. And I know we're all muted, which is good, but please feel free being muted and just sing along as we go. Thank you, George. Go ahead, In Right Relations.
Standing in right relations, embracing the 4 directions. Forgiveness is a way to freedom. Separateness is illusion. I'm talking about sacred giving. Grandmother, Indigenous wisdom. young and old, elders are rising. We protect the wisdom traditions. You know you can't hold us back. We stand for truth and right relation. We are healing from the inside out, from the inside out. From the inside out. Endangered on the brink of extinction. See the youth run from separation. Hope is the choice that we're making as we change the world with intention. We are dreaming reconciliation. Dignity for all is our vision. Let us run, live free in our unity. We're indivisible when we listen. You know you can't hold us back. We stand for truth and right relation. We are healing from the inside out, from the inside out.
Let the tears become a river. Let the river go to sea. Let the waves carry us to shore. Let we all just run free. Let we all just run free.
You know you can't hold us back. We stand for truth and right relation. We are healing from the inside out, from the inside out.
Thank you, all my precious relations. Let us be the creations that we are, part of all relations, part of Mother Earth. Thank you so much. Aho.
Thank you, Anita. Grounding, rooting, bringing us to creativity rising. The title of today's program is Liberating Our Creative Nature, and that's what we're doing here. Our next speaker will be introduced by Kathleen, a stunning, essential voice for climate change and consciousness.
Thank you, Anita. Your four gifts are healing me in this moment, and I appreciate everything that you do and have shared with us. That last song, we all had our Kleenex out, so I say keep them out because Claire Dubois always makes me cry. Claire is going to be speaking here with us today, and I'm so honored to have my dear friend with us. She is a beloved friend to me and will always be. She is a poet, an edge walker, an inspirational speaker and thought leader who is known for her direct catalytic energy, her whole systems approach to behavior and change, and her unending loyalty and love for the natural world. Claire spent 2 decades facilitating change processes for social and ecological entrepreneurs before founding Tree Sisters, which many of you on this call know about. As a women-led tropical reforestation organization that funded the planting of over 26 million trees during her 12 years of leadership, currently investigating a path to internal and external balance and the role of alchemy in personal transformation. Claire lives her life as a walking permission. I know she has for me, and remains a voice for the feminine and the sacredness of nature. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kathleen, for that. And Anita, it's such a privilege. I wish I could see your face. Do put yourself back on video for a second. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so moved by you. I'm always so moved by you. I miss you terribly. I wish there was an easier way to just teleport into your living room and have a cup of tea together and dream in the new. Thank you for everything, the lineage that comes through you, the wisdom that you allow to come through you, your humility to it all, your capacity to forgive. It's so extraordinary and so beautiful and so important. And you feel like such a tuning fork of deep integrity with everything that you express. And that plugs us all into that field of integrity and what's possible and grounds us all a little more in the real. And given the trauma that you've been through and the trauma that your people have been through, that you are able to bring yourself groundedly into that level of presence speaks volumes about who you are. So thank you. Thank you, dear Anita. And Stephanie, as ever, your just wild commitment to being as authentically expressed and speaking truth as much as you possibly can. Your vulnerability and your edge walking, your courage to do all of this from that first conference, which was so mind-blowing, although I was so sick. Do you remember how sick I was? Oh my God. That was horrendous. I was so ill. And I gave it to Angan Kark, so everybody loved me. I was making everybody sick. Yeah, but thank you, love. And Orsa, oh my goodness, that song, it made me cry every time we sang it at Climate Change and Consciousness. And there it was again in all its beauty. I'd forgotten, and it was so, I managed to video it. So now I can sing along, and I would love it if you could share the verses of it in the chat for everybody. Yeah, I won't be able to upload it because I've got terrible bandwidth here, but I'm hoping that could be released as a separate segue for everybody to dip into this through the gateway of your music. Would be incredible. And Jim, amazing to see you. And I need to acknowledge that I've been on a media fast for the last 3 months as I'm deep in a healing process. So I have no idea that the Americans are on the ground in Ukraine and that we're pointing nuclear weapons at each other. So I'm slightly in shock from a rather abrupt cold shower into reality on planet Earth. And then I've been crying ever since, because everything that's happened since then has been deeply touching to me. And as ever, I come totally unprepared for this, because I don't prepare for things, because it prevents me from being absolutely in the moment in response to what is here, because that is how I let my creativity rise. I let my creativity rise in answer to what is occurring in the moment. And I couldn't help thinking that, and Stephanie, you'll relate to this deeply, that trauma is playing out in our world on the most extraordinary level. That one of the greatest harms we've done to ourselves is storm through history, brutalizing each other, brutalizing our planet, and never being able to take the time to truly recover, never understanding what recovery is. And so there is this vast amount of unexpressed pain sitting in the gaps that manifests through our psyche, because our psyches have not come into wholeness and therefore are not able to express the pain. And that pain, to me, expresses as war. It expresses as the trashing of the natural world, because the natural world is the single most beautiful, intimate creation. And when you're in significant pain because what is most beautiful and intimate about you has been harmed, and if you can't address that, you will throw that pain out, and you will need to manifest it externally so that you can somehow scratch an itch that you can't reach. And that is the violence in our world. That is our tendency to do damage to each other. That is why we can't allow ourselves to feel the desecration of Earth as our own desecration, because the separation is so extraordinary, and in that gap is the trauma. So I hear what's happening in the world, and there's part of me that wants to go, you know, all these men in power throwing weapons at each other, and get distressed about it. And there's another part of me over here that needs to go, if this could be playing out differently, it would be. It's all an expression of something that's trying to move. And above all, it takes me to Barbara Marx Hubbard, and a moment that I shared on an aeroplane with her years ago, about 2 years before she died, or maybe a year before she died. Beautiful Barbara. And I was sitting on the plane bawling my eyes out because of the rate of tree loss in Colorado, which I'd just been driving through. Everything was dying, and I'd been online sending photographs on social media and discovering that the entire Rocky Mountain forest was dying, and I was in pieces. And then I looked up and I realized the person sitting next to me on the other side of the aisle was Barbara Marx Hubbard, and she was asleep. And I was just, oh my God, you can't wake up an 86-year-old woman, but Barbara, please wake up, please wake up. And like, I'm sitting there crying, and all of a sudden this hand grabs mine, and she's woken up and she sees me, and she was like, Claire, you're here. And I was like, Barbara, you're awake. And she's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, because I can't do it anymore. The trees are all dying. And she looked at me with those eyes like, and she said, Claire, you have to find your intimacy with the evolutionary impulse. Pure Barbara. And the transmission of her was so strong, it just bounced me out into like a much wider perspective. Like, I didn't know what the evolutionary impulse was, but energetically I caught it from her, that there is a bigger consciousness at play, there is a bigger game at play, there is a bigger unfolding at play. And you can fight it with your small human ego, or you can merge with it. You can spread your molecules and allow the creative impulse of creation at large that includes everything way beyond ourselves. And you can depersonalize it. You can step out of it, and you can look at it as some form of an expression of a creative impulse of the universe that is playing out in a way that it needs to play out. And that massively helped me. And so I just say that here in response to everything that we've heard that is really difficult, not as a way of abdicating responsibility, not as a form of spiritual bypass, because it's not a closing to, it's an opening to more. It's an opening to more, and it's an opening to more of who we are, because, if you know the Heart Math Institute, they haven't found an edge to our auras. There is no place where we begin or end. We may think that it's just this person in a body here, but our energetic field goes out and out and out and out and is connected to everything and is part of everything. And therefore, we are not limited in our capacity to receive. We're not limited in our capacity to transmit what we receive. So if we're feeling limited, if we're feeling uncreative, if we're feeling blocked, that's not coming in from the outside. There is no limit here. We are infinitely merged with the cosmos, which, as far as I'm concerned, has no edges either. And we have no real concept of what that creative potential actually is. It's so vast. It's like my spiritual teacher Sadhguru used to say, trying to understand the ways of the universe with your mind is like trying to empty an ocean into a bucket using a spoon. There is no way that we have got the mental capacity to be able to comprehend the extent of what is going on beyond our planet and on our planet and in our planet, or even in ourselves. We just, millions of transactions going on in our bodies that we have no clue about. There's 9 bacterial cells or non-human cells to every 1 human cell. It's like we don't even know what we are. Like we're these incredible creative hosts of all other life that's inside us. So dropping the notion that we're limited, I think, is a very essential, very, very essential first step. Opening our minds is another way of putting it. Opening our minds, dropping the belief that we know who and what we are. We have no idea what we are. We really, truly have no idea what we are. From the base level of all this junk DNA that we're made of, so-called junk DNA that actually is the DNA of every other living thing on this planet, down to the non-human cells in our body, down to how our egos and our minds cause us to perceive and think that separates us off from the natural world that we are intimately related to and part of, cannot be separate from, but our minds do that to us. And then the separation that we experience from each other, which causes us to judge wildly and be in fear, which brings me back again to trauma. If we're not in creative flow, if we're not allowing the fullest expression of our creativity to come through us, why? Why, when it's what we long for, when it's what we most enjoy experiencing and feeling when we're fully alive, what's going on? And I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about, what is creativity? And I have no idea what creativity really is, but here's my hunch. When I think about it, when I feel into it, I feel like there's this soul that is us that comes in unlimited as an energetic force, like a flame. And it arrives in the body. And the body is animated by that soul. And somehow the interface between soul and matter feels like the creative interface. And the degree to which our bodies can allow themselves to be aroused by our souls, out of that, a current of creativity arises. I've never thought that before, and I've never said it before, but I hope I can write it down at some point. I think there's something in that. I think creativity is a current. I think it's an expression. It's energy in motion. It's an arising of an intimacy between soul and matter. And because the soul comes in encoded with its full potential of expression, and then whatever happens in the body to the body is where we start going, that, no, that hurts. I've been rejected. I'm not wanted. However we internalize our childhood experiences, however we internalize our life experiences, every time we bump into pain and we take it personally and we associate it with ourselves, we're clamping down, we're walling ourselves off, we're making ourselves safe, and our creativity gets crushed and crushed and crushed until it's like, what's the safe bit of me that I can bring to the world? You know, what's the safe bit that I can bring that won't get laughed at or won't get judged, or I won't have to feel shame, or I won't have to, all this stuff. And so our creativity is squandered in the name of trying not to feel the pain, trying not to feel something, because it's there. We're all encoded with it. And I totally believe that if our souls have chosen to incarnate now at this turning point, and we are turning, and we may blow ourselves up, but some of us will survive, we are standing at the end of an era, at the end of a civilization. This is the end of life as we have known it on this planet. It is because it has to be, because there is no future for a species that roots its economy on the death of ecology. And that's what we have. We have an insane culture that is rooted in ways of being and doing that are competitive rather than collaborative, extractive rather than regenerative. There is no future for this culture as it is, therefore it has to go. And the teachings that I've heard different spiritual traditions say, the way that this planet shifts its paradigms and shifts its civilization is through wildly destructive acts. One of them said, it always happens through collision, that there are collisions between the energetic structures on this planet that are detrimental. And so I look at the war, and I think that, like, accumulation of shadow, of darkness, of trauma, of nightmare has to be, because it's sacred law on this planet, an expression of the equal and opposite of the dynamism and the light and the hope and the beauty and the creativity and the recognition and remembering, it's what Anita was saying, of the essential true nature of being human. It's like both are happening at the same time. And I know for myself, if I put my attention into the facts of the nightmare that's playing out over there, I get completely immobilized. So I can't, especially now in my life as it is, which is why I'm doing a media blackout. I am training my molecules to point towards the future that makes sense to my heart, because I need to leave no space in my psyche for nuclear war. I will not condone that in my version of this reality, and I am responsible for that contract with life that says love is the answer to it all. Love is the answer to it all. Love is the answer to trauma. Love is the answer to grief. Love is the answer to isolation. And love isn't just, please will everybody love me, please will somebody put their arms around me, although it's nice when that happens. Love is the choice to open your heart with compassion and grace despite it all. It's the choice to open into the more that is holding us, to open beyond the membrane of what feels safe into what's most alive, and be able to receive and embrace it all and allow it to have its way with us. You know, Barbara Marx Hubbard, I love that I woke up with her this morning. Two of her favorite words for me are vocational arousal. Vocational arousal, that unashamedly erotic feeling of receiving your own gifts and the irrepressibility of that current of creativity, like, oh my God, there's this thing that has to come through you. It has to come through you. It's like going to fight its way up through your system to be expressed. That moment where you have to sing, that moment where that poem has to come through, that book has to be written, these collaboration has to happen, because suddenly you can't live without it. Suddenly the tuning fork of your beingness is vibrating with such force that it literally feels like arousal. It is arousal. It's arousal of your soul in matter. Your matter, the matter that you are, the body that you has, starts thrilling to this impulse, thrilling to this current. And it's like you're a flower saying, yes, you know, like, do me to the sun, like, penetrate me. That feeling of like, I want to be fully penetrated by life. I want my soul to drop into my body. I want this trauma to dissolve so that I am able to bring the juice of my soul into the soil of my body. And out of that, this irrepressible green shoot of creative impulse begins to rise, and I cannot stop it, because I will not stop it, because I need it, because I need to feel alive. I need to feel fully alive. I need this incarnation to be fully lived. I need everything that I came in with to be able to find its way out through this body to the world, no matter whether the world wants it or not. That's not the point. No matter whether anybody understands it or not, that's not the point. The point is, you came here now. You came here now at this time when one world is ending and another is beginning, because something in you has something to bring. Ooh, that makes me want to cry. Wow. We're here for a reason. It's our responsibility to allow ourselves to receive what that is in here so that it can come out here. We may not have a clue what it is, but if we're not vocationally aroused, we haven't found it yet. I really believe that. I really believe that our pleasure points us to what brings us most alive. And our planet needs us most alive. It needs us alive. We need to be on fire. And holding that manifestation of a humanity that makes sense to our hearts. We need to be divesting our energy from fighting with the old structures that are dying and plug our energy into the systems that we want to see built. So we might be going, oh, I can't start a movement. I can't blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, but what we can do is consciously remove our reactivity, remove our judgment, remove our collusion with the systems that are wantonly destructive in this world, bleed them of their power and press our power into the systems and the beliefs and the future and the creation of what we want. We've got to strengthen what's coming for it to manifest, for it to be watered by the creative juice of our souls. And I know life is frightening. I know life is frightening, terrifying. God damn, and it hurts. But it's, what's more important? Bowing to our insecurities and letting our fear of feeling certain feelings control our creative output, or living a life in response to the greatest crisis of our times that says the children matter more than my fears do. The species matter more than my fears do. The whales matter more than my need to not feel shame or fear judgment. The future of our planet, of our bees, of our ecosystems, of our soils matter more than my fear of being humiliated if nobody reads my book. It's like, what matters? Protecting ourselves from feeling feelings that, if we feel them, liberate us anyway, and mean that we can sit here spouting whatever comes out of our minds, not concerned about what people think. So actually letting life move through us, or going, oh, did I get it wrong? What will people say? I'm going to swear, fuck it. Sorry. It just like, it doesn't matter. What matters is what we can be, what we can feel, what we can transmit, what it means to be fully alive, what it means to give our gifts. And that's me. That's me. That's what I wanted to say. Vocational arousal is the new compass of our creative endeavors. Living in humility before the immensity that compress into us and ignite this current, honoring the fact that dealing with our trauma is a fundamental gateway into allowing our souls to sit in our bodies and to allowing our bodies to express their creative force. It's down to us. It's down to us as individuals, understanding the power that we have as individuals. Every time one of us walks through one of these membranes, we walk through it on behalf of all of us. We're all co-liberating each other. And we are exceptionally beautiful beings. And Anita, I just want to acknowledge again what you said about beauty, the power of beauty. Beauty and pleasure, the antidote to war, and our pathway to our creativity. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Claire. I need a cigarette, even though I don't smoke. And I think that a lot of other people had climaxes in the reach climax in the chat. But wow, you are just an engine. You are praying for our new world, and I'm on it. Thank you so much, Claire. Really appreciate it.
This is the epitome, really. All of our presenters here today are epitomizing, delivering the message of today, liberating our creative nature. And as many of you know, I understand that from an embryological standpoint. My premise, and Claire has articulated that, Anita has articulated it, Asa has sung it. Our nature is creativity. Our nature is evolutionary. And when we bring that nature that got us here into the forefront of our lives instead of suppressing it, then even the tragedy in Belarus, where my people are from, where my roots are, becomes something we meet with that nature. The nature that brought us to this very moment, as Claire has so beautifully said. So we invite the conversation. Jim, please join us and share with us some of the key questions and comments from the chat so that we can commune together in liberating our creative nature.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I'm sitting here overwhelmed by Claire, your powerful words, and Anita's, and Stephanie, Kathleen, you just brought in such extraordinary energy. It's exactly what we need after what I said at the beginning. You know, we're in an antinomial world where we have to hold the opposites of the reality of the world and the trauma of the world with the elimination. I think, Claire, you said something really powerful in when you were talking about just eliminating from your entire being discord and filling it with vocational arousal. I just love that notion, because I think it's come down to this, is that, you know, things are getting worse and worse, better and better, faster and faster in our world. And so that the worse it gets, the more we have to squeeze the shadow out of ourselves and fill ourselves with a capacity to be fully present in everything that we're doing. So I just want to acknowledge you bringing that in, and would invite you to say a little bit more about the process you're undergoing right now, in order to make that an existential reality, because I think that's something all of us need to pay attention to, and follow your lead. And then Anita, if you want to comment on this, because I know you think about this all the time, and Asa as well. So anyway, that was what was coming up to me, is just the importance of that process in all of our lives.
Wow. Well, gosh. That's not an easy answer, an easy question to answer, because it's a very personal and very complex process that I'm in right now that involves largely a deconstruction of myself. And because, you know, I've left 3 sisters after 12 years, to work on healing early childhood trauma that has basically kept me ill all my life. And so, like, getting to that place where it's like, if I'm going to discover who I actually am, then I have to actually fully address where I came from, and all the ways in which that has boxed me in and limited my creativity, limited my health. So it's a way of, like, I need to transcend the tendency to take personally what happened to me, which is a deep turning over of all the conditioning that has caused my psyche to be in the shape that it's in, and therefore all the different ways in which my life force expresses through my psyche, my body, the trauma that's just sitting there, which is all of us. That's all of us. There is nobody here that has not experienced trauma, and there's nobody here that hasn't experienced trauma either in their own lives or through their epigenetics. Like, we're swimming in a world of trauma. But I've always, you know, to this point, it's just something that you deal with as you do life. And then for me, it got to the point of, actually, I can't do life and this at the same time. I need to just do this. Like, I need to actually put all my attention into this, because we're so defended against it. And it's this thing of, what are you trying not to feel? And what are the mechanisms in your body that hold the feelings that you're not wanting to feel in place? And what are the belief systems and patterns of thought that you exist in as a norm, that are the tools with which you avoid the things that you don't want to feel? And I think one of the pointers that we have is, what we're most afraid of is largely where our greatest gifts are lurking. And so, being honest with ourselves, being really honest with ourselves, and really starting to look at, what am I avoiding? What are the dreams that I don't dare express to myself? For me, it's like, I came into this world as an artist, as a singer, as a writer, as a poet. I have not allowed myself to paint for decades. I have not allowed myself to sit down and play the piano. I've not been singing. Poetry comes through me because I can't stop it, but everything else I've managed to stop. And if I turn towards that, what is it? It's a level of intimacy I'm terrified of feeling. I'm terrified of the feeling of my soul being in the matter that I am, because I come from such brutality. Well, unless I can dissolve the friction between the two and address what's in the gap, I'm never going to sit in my body properly and be able to experience that interface that I'm talking about, that intimacy where the life force that we are can merge unchecked with our matter, and we can't stop that current. We can't stop it. And it feels to me like that is the biggest responsibility we have as human beings, to take responsibility for the full incarnation of ourselves into our lives, to truly understand, why am I here? What am I bringing? And how do I liberate it?
And so this, I mean, it's a death process, but it's a death process that's going along exactly in tune, as it always does with me, with the death process on our planet, of our current civilization, of the lie of lack, of the lie of separation. Every lie that I'm seeing manifested in the world that perpetuates the disconnection and the insane behavior is the same set of lies that exist in the micro level inside all of us that prevent us from being able to feel our indivisibility and live a way of being that makes sense in relationship to life as a whole. So we cannot change the world unless we change ourselves. We cannot birth a new world unless we birth a new self, because otherwise we're just trying to build a new structure on top of rotten foundations. We've got to go to the root. We have to take responsibility for our victim consciousness and our dominator consciousness. You know, I can hear my husband in my head saying, we don't have to, we get to do this. We get to do this great act of making conscious how we are colluding with a system that has lied to us forever. You know, one of the things about creativity, you can put children in school and you can fill them up with education. You can take all these facts and you can shove them into those beautiful receptacles that children are. Or you can hold space for them, help them come into themselves and allow that current of creativity to arise and allow the new generations to bring through a consciousness and an expression of what human beings actually are from a non-conditioned, indoctrinated, dominated way of being. It's like looking at the very way that we dominate our children, dominate nature, dominate our women, dominate everything. Why are we so afraid of allowing what wants to come through? And that's the question for each of us. Why are we so afraid of ourselves? Why are we so afraid of our beauty? Why are we so afraid of pleasure? Why do we reach out for the stressful things instead of the pleasurable things? And why, when we do those things that actually bring us alive, do we then think, well, that has to be on the side of my work, but my work is over here? Our work needs to become vocational arousal. We need to be in the positions in our life that bring us most alive. And we need to unequivocally plug into our right to be fully alive and therefore be able to be a vibrational magnet to the circumstances that will bring us alive. But to do that, we need to be honest with ourselves.
So I just have to say, Claire, that I am in a state of constant vocational arousal. And
I can testify to that.
It has been problematic for others, but it's actually, and, you know, I refuse to feel any shame about this. While the world is getting better, worse and worse, I am getting better and better.
Yeah.
So I feel like I am being polished to show my vocational arousal more and more and more and more. And that's what Creativity Rising is about. And that is what has created Creativity Rising. And I feel that that's what brought Kathleen and I together. And that this is indeed, if I may say so, Jim, I think I started this conversation with you in Chartres. This is the antidote or the reply to what you opened with. It is creativity rising. It is not doing the same old. It is creativity rising. It's unpredictable descent of guidance, and guidance and creativity are the same thing. You know, I tortured myself, Claire, over this separation between my artist self, my poet dancer self, and what it was I thought I had to do professionally. There is no longer any separation. I am dancing and poetry and science all at the same time. And yeah, it may not look like anything else, but it is what is coming through me, and it is what I can't say no to. It's unstoppable. It's completely unstoppable.
That's it.
Mm.
It's like letting your own river. It's like undamming our inner rivers. You know, we're not designed to be dammed. We're designed to be rivers.
Mark would love that.
They want to have their way with us. And I'll just say one other thing, and then I must shut up. There is a vibrational shift happening on this planet. Forget Ukraine for a second. That's a terribly disrespectful thing, but just hold a shadow to one side and feel the vibrational potential that is happening. The vibration on this planet is shifting. It is shifting dramatically. You can hook your energy into a sense that our molecules are vibrating at a completely different pitch. And when things vibrate enough, they can quantum leap. And I've never felt the possibility for a quantum leap on our planet until the last 3 weeks. And suddenly I can feel in my body, in my cells, the potential for a quantum leap. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it feels like, but something has changed and I can feel it. I can clearly feel it. And that makes me even clearer. Okay, the way that we are hooked into the old systems is dissolving. It just is. I can't feel them anymore. We need to go this way. We need to hook into belief that a quantum leap absolutely is possible. And I'm not saying that it's not going to mean there's massive destruction, because I think it's coming, but that seems to be what we do on our planet. And if we're hooked into the vibrational essence of our universe, that intelligence knows what it's doing. It knows what it's doing, but it's happening, and it's happening right now. If we have time before we end, I'd love 5 minutes just to share a poem that holds in it the vibrational essence of that change, because that poem that came through me, I didn't write it, turns a key, and it's hooking us all into that potential that I think is crucial, because anything is possible. Okay, I'm now shutting up.
Well, maybe what we could do is have your poem, and then Asa, if you could sing at the very end, just another song, that would be wonderful. But Anita, I would love to just bring your voice into this conversation, because there's some powerful energy that's been unleashed.
Very powerful. And I honor you, Claire, with the journey that you're doing and sharing it with others, because it is a way. And there's another way, and another way, and another way, and another way. And that's to take strength in that. So when all of you who are listening, is to hear, there's a reason we're all here, and to take that in, but also to honor your way. And your way isn't alone. Again, that's the part of then really feeling the shift of what's happening. And it's been happening for some time, but I would agree in the last month, it's changed. So I'm just going to share one of the processes. There are many that are given to us in our one hoop of life with great diversity within it. For 20 plus years, I awake every morning, no matter where I am, no matter what the weather, before the sun rises. And I go outside and I stand there. First I chant. I invite the ancestors, and I just be quiet. Don't ask for anything, and just receive the seeds of light. The seeds of light from the sun have changed. Now, my elders said, Anita, it's because you've changed too. I said, well, yeah, we're all part of all this, right? But I'm still getting a little bit more of what they're suggesting, because years ago, what they said is, you continue on this path, and then at various points, you'll not only feel the energy as if it's out here, you are the energy. And it's from clearing and clearing and clearing, and it's never done. So please hear this. That's why I said, as elders, we say another way, and there's another way, because we're never going to arrive. That's a joy, actually. You know, there are days I'm like this, okay? But I don't get stuck there, because I realize I am part of this energy that's shifting, and I continue to do my work. And I receive the seeds of light. So I invite you, in whatever way makes sense to you, and maybe just putting your feet in the water, or every day when you drink that water. There's so many practices that my grandmother and my mother and others have taught me along the way that help me, have always been a part of, help me move through the tremendous trauma that's been a part of my life. And I don't know if there'll be new ones. What I do know differently is the piece that you shared, Claire, of when we came in, so much of what I'm trained in a PhD in lots of different methodologies, of course, but in general, that small soul coming in, that being, whatever language you put to that, that part of Mother Earth, the combination, that great alchemy that made you, is enlightened. And so we don't only need to see our elder selves, but sometimes it's going to the young one with the purity of that sacredness, untouched by this craziness, or to use the 4-letter word, the fucked upness, or I use past tense, so it's 6 letters, but nonetheless, of what's happening out here. To know that's happening out here, that's not me. And so it is a way to walk, and I'm still learning it. But by all the things that many would sometimes say, that was so shameful, you put that in the book. Oh my God, it's a different way to live when you're free. So I will just highlight one other gift besides the seeds of sun. Forgiveness is more than forgiveness. It's not forgetting. It's not being betrayal to who you are, to whole groups of people where horrific things have happened or are happening. Forgiveness really is a pathway to your freedom. Forgiveness is the pathway to unconditional love of yourself, so that then you can be that. And you wouldn't even use unconditional. It feels crazy using that, because if it's conditional, it's not love anyway. It's the love that you're a part of. But it is also, as Elder Basil Braveheart told me right before COVID started in a Sundance, he came and said, Anita, I love it. But the next thing you write or experience this, because it's already in you, but you need to understand. Forgiveness is the passcode to your own divinity. And so what we're doing in getting rid of this illusion of separateness, our own divinity is coming, it has to. That's part of that thread of threads, many threads, thousands of threads of creativity coming through, that energy we are a part of, not separate from. So I just want to say to you, there's tough things in these journeys, but I will tell you, the well of joy is so much bigger than the well of pain. That's the difference. When I was caught in the separation, I thought I was that well of pain. I thought there was nothing. I had to build a big old armor to keep all the bad stuff up. What I didn't realize, that armor also didn't know how to differentiate it from the good stuff that was inside it and outside of it. So you had to. So I honor you. I honor all of us on this journey. And I know it's not belief. I know this energy that we are part of. We will do it. We are doing it. And it's not just two-legged. It's all of our relations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. We're running a little bit against the clock here, so I want to see what we could do maybe in the next 5 minutes. And I know we have more content than we could possibly fit into this time. But Stephanie, what's your suggestion? Should we have something from Claire and then have Asa sing a song? What could we do in the next 5 minutes?
Well, 5 minutes is a challenge, but I'll meet it with my creativity. And let me just say that I am so excited about tomorrow. So tomorrow is about creativity and systemic change. And I am in total vocational arousal about tomorrow, because we are going to be meeting with people who are bringing their creativity to the healthcare system. And you know that's my thing. And we are going to be talking about how creativity can create a systemic shift in our very understanding of this well-being that Claire has been referring to. So we're going to have Stella Osorojos Eisenstein. We're going to have Dr. Spring Chung. We're going to have Dr. Anne-Marie Schomat. It is, and me and Kathleen, it is going to be so incredibly uplifting, informative, and very arousing. So with that, I would love to hear from Asa. She's been waiting patiently, and also Claire's poem. That's the best I can do for a summary.
So Claire, why don't you give us your poem, and then Asa, you give us a song, and then we'll bring it to a close for today. But with deep thanks to everybody for this level of a vocational arousal. It's a beautiful notion. It is the antidote to Ukraine. So thank you for bringing that in, Claire. Give us a poem, and then Asa, you close us out.
It's not long. You're all right. God, my eyesight. Can you feel it? The feeling of internal fixed structures giving way to a vibrational potential that can rearrange, reorder, and reconstruct a new paradigm. Can you feel that the fingers that have clenched around stories from the past are loosening? Can you feel that the impetus to hold on has ebbed away, leaving a deep, slack mutability out of which anything could emerge? The mind does not even want to investigate the end of the old. It is full and quiet. It rests in the void, lazily observing the molecular cascade of infinite change that is and could happen. The fizzing of firefly molecules vibrating themselves into something new, inside me and inside you. And I scream, hell yes, to the intelligence behind it all, to the consciousness that knows how to birth new species and new selves, who knows how to take it all, everything you've hidden away, everything you've built your life upon, everything that has kept you able to function, at least in some small or large way, in step with our wildly destructive human dance, and vibrate it out of existence. It's time to let go. Not some careful, organized departure from the known, but a full throttle dumping of conditioned absurdity and compliance. An ending with a deep and sweeping bow of I'm done. Because you are. Because I am. Because we are. Done with aligning our molecules to a fast that sees life as product, not miracle. Done with saying yes when no is the only catalyst for change. Done with holding on to that old shape that is howling for relief. To be set free to unfurl naturally beyond the clenches of fear. To quantum leap into a vibrational symphony of beauty made manifest through reverence and joy. Because it's now. It's happening inside and out. The molecules of our world and the consciousness that has held it all in place are all in flux. And out of that great womb, that vast velvety blackness laced with light, arises the new, you.
Thank you, Claire. Asa?
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. I love your poems. So I have put some of your poems to music, as you know. So I wanted to share one of them with all of you. This is Claire's poem about the forest of your wild self. Can you hear the wild call of earth's beckoning? Can you taste the sane relief of the seasonal flow and the rise and the fall of your breath and the tides that are who you are when all that you're not falls away, that are who you are when all that you're not falls away, when your wild self, your earth self starts calling. This pulling is guiding you home. To remember, to merge, to embody, to follow all that arises through you as you enter and reclaim the forest of your wild feminine self, that are who you are when all that you're not falls away, when your wild self, your earth self, starts calling.
Thank you, Asa. When your wild self starts calling. That's the bottom line, everyone. Thank you so much, Stephanie, Kathleen, Claire, Anita, Asa, for a powerful, powerful start of our 5-day program on the creativity all of us need to embody for us to save ourselves and lead humanity to a better world. Thank you all. And that brings us to a close. You're all welcome to the after session chat. We'll see you all tomorrow for our second of 5 sessions on creativity rising. Bye for now.